All right, welcome back to this series. This is Spin the Top, and you might remember from the last video, it all starts with pattern development. The first thing you're gonna do before you glue anything on is you gotta cut out the pattern the right way. Check out this. So you have two patterns this time. This first thing, this top view, I'm just gonna cut out that rectangle, and I'll cut it out exactly on the actual size of the piece of wood. I think that's gonna work best for this particular pattern. So that's the choice I'm making. And for this other one, I'm just gonna keep life easy. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna cut out around this entire rectangle. When I do my lining up on a piece of wood, I'm gonna go with this corner, and these two edges. So a little bit of cleanup in here is something I think I'll do next. All right, so that is ready to be glued on. And when I add this guy into the mix, I'm ready for some rubber cement. So that's right, the next thing you're gonna do is take some rubber cement or whatever kind of adhesive you like, put a thin layer on your piece of wood, and make sure you're lining your pattern up just like I'm about to show. The next thing I'm gonna do, I'm set up on the drill press, and if you remember this pattern, I am gonna end up drilling this hole through the top. I'm using a 1 1/4 inch dowel, so the drill bit I selected is just a little bit bigger than that. So if all went well on that one, you've got a hole all the way through. Just like that. Next is time for a quick change out of your bits, and it's time to get this one done. Now, what size should you do? My advice, anything from 1 up to maybe 1.5 inches is gonna be just fine. The key is get your tip or your point of the drill bit on the center point of your pattern. So you've got 2 holes drilled, you got 1 through the top, you got 1 through the front. It's over to the scroll saw next. then after you cut out, you no longer really need your pattern anymore, so you can get it off any way that you choose. I have cut and drilled relatively shortly after having glued my pattern down, so it's probably going to come off fairly easy. Although I'm conducting an experiment here, never actually tried to do this at 32 degrees, and we'll see how that glue pulls up. All right, so I'll call this segment a tale of two top spinners. Okay, so here's the one I just cut out. So what are the qualities of this one? Well, you can see that on edges, particularly where I have fillets, it's not a smooth transition and there's some rough spots. On the back side of where I drilled, there's some chip out that's caused from the drill press and me not being close enough to my backer board. And let's see here, another tooling mark right on this edge. So is that acceptable? My personal belief is no. This is what a finished product looks like. And you can see that all of those edges are cleaned up. And to me personally, I think they look nice. So how do you get there? The answer is you spend about 10 minutes with these bad boys. These are called wood rasps. And you get rid of tooling marks and you clean up those fillets. And then this guy, I'm just using 80 grit sandpaper. My personal belief is you sand till it looks good. In this case, it took me about 40 minutes. But I wanted to look nice for my boy. So I've spent the time sanding, wood rasping, my handle's looking nice. My last steps are to make the top. Now for this, I use a toy wooden wheel. If you're interested, I can put a link down below in the description and you could get a wooden wheel that way. The other thing is a dowel, and I ended up matching the dowel size to the inside diameter of this toy wheels. What would this be called? The axle. So here's how I'm gonna make this thing. So step one in making a top, this involves some measuring. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a dowel go through this spot. So it's basically gonna look like this. I need the toy wheel to fasten on. And then I need a little bit down here for the top to spin on. So for that, I'm gonna get out my tape measure, put all those things together, measure, and I'm gonna go with 3 inches just to be sure that I have enough distance to cover everything. Can always make it shorter if I need to. Next, I'm gonna take this chip out and sand that up. And I'm also going to bring this not to a point, but I am gonna shape it a bit until it looks like the tip of a top. Tip of a top, tip of a top. Little cleanup on this other side, just to make it look nice. All right, that's what I'm going with. Next, I'm gonna feed the dowel through this toy wheel. Now, I personally want this flat side to face down and the decorative side to face up. So I'm gonna push this through here, and I actually want the least amount of top showing through this. The balance of that just makes it spin better, particularly if you got a kid using this thing. Nice tight squeeze. I'm gonna go further than that, if you're wondering. Go with a little tappy tappy. That's where I'm gonna start my testing. Next, I'm going to take about 12 inches of string, maybe a little bit more, not even measuring. And All right, so here comes our first ever test of the top spinner. I'd say it works pretty good.
How is that still spinning?